Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rico and in this episode we're going to address photos from the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. It's a new phone I've bought and it shoots RAW and I'm very excited to edit these photos. I'm going to pick one. Let's go. And here we have the image I've decided to edit. It's an image of Nacho and my girlfriend. And I've already deactivated the base curve step, so I went to the orientation step and hit the compress history stack. Let me show you guys the end result real quick. So here's a snapshot. On the right side is the image that we're going to work on, and on the left side is the final image. And as you can see, it makes a huge difference. So without further ado, let's start. I'm going to select the orientation step, and the first thing I'm going to change is the exposure because I want the black level to go to the left a little bit. So for that we need to increase this value. I also want to increase the overall exposure even though her jacket is already overexposed, and that has to do with the fact that Nacho is pretty dark because he is a dark dog. So I'm just going to fill in 0.4 manually just so that this area of him is being exposed a little bit more properly and we can see the dog even better than we did before. And now that we've done that, we're going to use the Filmic RGB module. Let me go back to scene because this is what you're going to see. I'm going to activate it and that already makes a huge difference to this image. We are going to change some values around. We're going to shift the white relative exposure to the right rather than the left. So on the left side it makes it more dark. On the right side it makes it more bright. And I'm just going to change that to 4.5. I'm not going to change the black relative exposure here, and I'm not going to change the dynamic range scaling, but I am going to change something in the reconstruct tab. And there's only a minor change I'm going to do, which is the transition, because if I move it to the right, you see that it becomes a little bit better visible than when I move it to the left. And watch what happens to the histogram. This gets stretched out. You see? So now it's up, now it's down. I'm just going to fill in for this, I think 3.9. I think that will look fine. And the third thing we're going to do is change the look of this image. And we're going to start with the contrast. Usually you guys saw me use the color balance one for this one to increase the contrast. You can still do that, but a few weeks ago someone commented on my channel and he said, well, if you use the Filmic RGB module, why don't you use the contrast slider there? So especially for you, that's what we're going to do right here. So I'm just going to increase it ever so slightly. Make sure you don't overdo the contrast because things will start to look very, very nasty. And I'm going to change the saturation of the midtones as well. So if you decrease this, you will see that it starts to become black and white. And if you increase it, it starts to look yucky. So I'm just going to increase this by 12 just to make sure. And let me show you guys before and after. So here's a before the Filmic RGB and here's one while we're working in it. Then we've got two more tabs, which is the display tab and the options tab. And in the display tab, we're not going to change anything, but in the options tab, we are. So we're going to keep the color signs of version 4. We're going to preserve the chrominance in the RGB power norm, but I am going to change the contrast in the highlights from hard to soft to make sure that the effects aren't as visible in the highlights as they are in the shadows. And I'm going to change the type of noise from Poissonian to Gaussian. There we go. And that's it for the Filmic RGB one. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change the noise because this image has a lot of noise and it looks absolutely horrible. And I don't know why that is, that this phone takes images that are so noisy. I mean, if you look at the JPEGs, the noise is completely gone. I'm going to show you guys the JPEG after I'm done with this. But when I opened this RAW file, I was like, whew, that's a lot of noise to work with. And hopefully darktable, its Denoise profile module, can definitely get rid of it. And if you know a better way to get rid of this many noise, please let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear it. But for this tutorial, let's go to the Denoise profile one. So let's search that one up, Denoise profile. I'm going to activate that one. And I'm going to change the mode from non-local means to wavelets. And I'm going to change the color mode from Y, 0, etc. to RGB because these are RGB pixels. So I figured if I put this on RGB, that addresses that. And another thing I want to do is you can increase or decrease the size of this circle by scrolling away from you or towards you. I just want to up this a little bit to make it even more soft, and we'll counteract that with some sharpening later on. And one of the things I want to do is, because Nacho became very soft, is I want to preserve the shadows a little bit. So if I move the slider to the left, you see that all the noise is still in him, and if I move it to the right, he becomes very soft. I want something in the middle, so I'm just going to go for 0.6. So there's still a little bit of noise that keeps him sharp, but it's not as bad as it was in the background. And I think that looks fine enough for what we're trying to achieve here. And if you step away from this photo a little bit, you'll notice that it has a blue color cast. And I'm going to address that color cast by using the color correction module, because I have been using that a while ago and I am going to use it again because I want to introduce some oranges in the highlights, but I don't want the shadows to go into the blues. I am going to move them up a little bit to warm it as well, so that he gets a more natural color, because Nacho does have some brown hairs between his black fur. I made a whole video about the color correction module. I'll link it somewhere up here for you guys to check it out if you want to know more of it. And when I was looking at this image, I figured that something about these leaves is distracting me. So I just want to address the greens in those leaves. So I'm going to use the color lookup table. And you already saw me draw a box over here. You can do with the color picker, and then if you hit shift and click inside it, that color will be selected over here. And it does match this green. But what I want to do is I want to increase the greens a little bit. And I'm going to increase the yellows and the saturation so that it's very subtle, but you see that it gives it more saturation and it looks a lot more natural than it did before. And one of the things I want to change as well is the white balance. I know that the white balance is something that's done automatically, but for some reason I do believe that this image is a little bit too blue. So I'm just going to increase the temperature. So if you drop it to the left, it becomes more cold. If you move it to the right, it becomes more warm. So let me reset that to the proper value. I'm just going to increase this, and you see that the image is starting to warm up, but it definitely makes a huge difference. Now, there we go. Let me show you guys the end result again in comparison to the previous result. I'm going to hit the compressed history stack, and I'm going to take a new snapshot. And here we have the original image as it came out of the camera phone. And now moving the slider, there you go. Here's the end result. And I'm very happy with how that looks. As I said before, if you know a better way to denoise images, let me know in the comment section down below. And before we go, there's one more thing I want to show you guys, which is this photo in comparison to the JPEG. So let me bring in the JPEG. There you go. And here you see the difference. And the dog is more natural looking than it does on this photo. And Lisa has a better skin tone than the JPEG does, because this looks a little bit pale. In here she has a little bit more warm color, and I prefer this look. And that's it. I hope you guys like it. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you want to see more of me, please click that playlist over there. And if you haven't subscribed already, you can do so by clicking that button over there. And for this week, there's only one more thing left for me to say, which is make love to the like button. And until next time, doei!